US President Joe Biden will host the Indian Prime Minister for an official state visit to the United States later this week. The visit includes a state dinner and an address to the joint session of the US Congress. Today, the Indian Foreign Ministry will hold a press meeting and detail the Prime Minister's schedule. Ahead of Prime Minister Modi's historic visit, Indian Americans held a unity march across US cities. The Indian PM's visit will begin in New York, where he will lead the celebrations of the International Day of Yoga at the headquarters of the United Nations. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on the last day of his China visit. Blinken has met with China's top diplomat Wang Yi. Prior to his departure from Beijing today, there is speculation that before Blinken leaves, he may also meet the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Earlier, Blinken held more than 7.5 hours of what they called candid and constructive talks with Chinese Foreign Minister Quan Gang on Sunday. Although the talks did not appear to make concrete progress on disputes that include Taiwan, trade, human rights, and fentanyl. The ongoing Sudan battle has hit the pause button. A 72-hour ceasefire was initiated on Sunday. The aim is to calm the row between Sudanese military factions that has been going on for over 2 months now. Sudan's army and the rival Rapid Support Forces have agreed to refrain from attacks during the ceasefire period. The truce interval started in the wee hours of Sunday morning, where both the warring sides have agreed to allow delivery of medical aid and supplies to Sudan's capital. The truce comes after previous failed attempts of ceasefire. In an attempt to offer aid to Sudanese refugees in Egypt, the European Union's foreign policy chief Joseph Borrell announced the allocation of 20 million euros. The funds will help the Egyptian government deal with the influx of Sudanese who fled the war and crossed into Egypt. Borrell's announcement came at a joint news conference in Cairo with the Egyptian foreign minister. As per the UN Migration Agency, Egypt has received more than 200,000 Sudanese since the fighting began in mid-April. The EU is also allocating about 80 million euros to Egypt for border management, search and rescue, and anti-smuggling operations. War-torn Ukraine is seeking up to $40 billion to fund the first part of a Green Marshall Plan to rebuild its economy. The two-day meet, co-hosted by Ukraine and the UK, begins in London on Wednesday. Politicians and financiers will discuss the country's short-term funding issues as well as look at long-term reconstruction efforts. The World Bank estimates Ukraine's reconstruction will cost $411 billion, 3 times the country's GDP. Since Russia's invasion in February 2022, external backers have poured at least $59 billion into Ukraine for financing needs. The death toll from the flooding following the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam rose to 16 in Ukraine. On the other hand, Russian officials said that 29 people have died in territories under Moscow. The breaching of the Kakhovka Dam on the 6th of June unleashed floodwaters across a large swathe of land in southern Ukraine and in Russia-occupied parts of Ukraine. The floodwaters destroyed farmland and cut off supplies to civilians. More than 3,600 people have been evacuated from flooded areas in the Kherson and Mykolaiv regions, while 31 people are still missing. Some 1,300 houses remain flooded. North Korea has said that its mismanaged satellite launch last month was the gravest failure. The statement comes after a key meeting held by the ruling party. The meeting marked the 8th plenary of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea, which is the country's ruling party. This meeting was held over the weekend. People who were in charge of the launch were heavily criticized, as per reports. The officials ordered the workers and researchers to analyze where did the military satellite launch go wrong. The team was also asked to prepare for another similar launch soon. Israel is set to approve thousands of building permits in the West Bank, despite US pressure to halt settlement expansion that Washington sees as an obstacle to peace with Palestinians. According to reports, Israel has included its plans to approve over 4,500 housing units in various areas of the West Bank. Although only over 1,300 are up for final approval, the remainder units are yet to undergo the preliminary clearance process. It also amended a law to clear the way for settlers to return to 4 settlements that had previously been evacuated. Amid the ongoing public resistance against judicial overhaul in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to advance the controversial judicial reforms. Netanyahu has said that his government is ready to take active steps to push the legislation through. At a weekly cabinet meeting on Sunday, the Prime Minister vowed to quote-unquote begin the practical measures on the reforms, in spite of ongoing demonstrations. Massive protests against these judicial reforms have continued over the last 5 months since they were introduced in February this year. Protest organizers are adamant about not giving up until the government cancels the proposed changes rather than delay them. Polls in Mali's Bamako closed on Sunday and the counting of votes is underway. Malian voters cast their ballots on a new draft constitution in a referendum. The country's coup leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, said that the referendum will pave the way towards holding new elections in 2024. But on the other hand, critics have called a delay tactic to extend his time in power. Assimi seized control of the landlocked West African country nearly 3 years ago. He has told Malians that the proposed draft constitution provides for a better organized executive power. Juneteenth celebrations took a tragic turn on Sunday night. Reports have emerged of a horrific shooting incident amid a massive rush. 1 person is dead, 20 others have been injured with gunshot wounds. The incident happened in a suburb of Chicago City. Residents said that every year people spontaneously gathered at the parking lot to celebrate Juneteenth and the 4th of July. DuPage County Sheriff's Deputy Chief Eric Swanson said that authorities are still investigating the motive and the number of shooters involved. Juneteenth is a U.S. federal holiday commemorating the emancipation of enslaved Black Americans. Family members in Uganda buried their loved ones on Sunday after attackers from a group with links to the Islamic State killed at least 37 secondary school students. Members of the rebel Allied Democratic Forces killed the students late on Friday at a school in Uganda near the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo. Military and police said that the attackers had also abducted 6 students. They fled towards the Virunga National Park across the border. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the attack in a statement. He urged on the importance of collective efforts to tackle cross-border insecurity between Congo and Uganda. Australia's Senate passed a legislation that will pave the way for the country to hold a landmark referendum that will pave a way to recognize indigenous people in the constitution. In a final vote in the upper house of parliament, 52 voted in favour of the bill while 19 voted against, allowing the bill to be passed with an absolute majority. Lawmakers supported the bill, clapped and cheered as the final members of the vote were read out in the House. A searing heat wave swept across India's northeast over the weekend. The latest spell of unusually hot weather caused nearly 100 deaths in just 2 regions alone since Thursday. Maximum temperatures soared between 42 and 44 degrees in at least 5 states. And according to the Indian Meteorological Department, the highest recorded temperature of 45.4 degrees Celsius was recorded in India's eastern Odisha state. The government on Sunday issued more severe heat advisories for some northeastern regions and said that blazing conditions would extend into Tuesday. At least 12 people have been killed in Brazil's southern state after an extratropical cyclone struck the region. The storm caused torrential rains. As per reports, helicopter searches are underway in flooded neighborhoods to find 5 others who have gone missing. In some flooded towns, firefighters have resorted to using boats to be able to help affected residents, besides sending help via helicopters. One of the worst hit on the cyclone's trail was the town of Cará, which has a population of over 8,000 people. Many residents in affected areas have taken shelter in outdoor sports facilities in their towns. The authorities have issued a warning for a risk of landslides in several areas.
De 73 anos.
The tornado that struck the Texas town of Perryton last week left a trail of destruction of structures damaged and lots of debris everywhere. The tornado killed at least 4 people and injured dozens others. Hundreds of homes, many of them in a trailer park, were damaged or destroyed. Satellite images before and after the tornado hit showed the aftermath of devastated areas. Twitter is planning to revamp its existing structure by focusing on video creators and e-commerce segments. The plan is to breathe new life into the social media company's existing businesses and take it a step beyond digital advertising. In a recent investor presentation, CEO Linda Yaccarino, along with Musk, showed how vertical videos account for over 10% of the time spent on the app. Interestingly, former Fox News host Tucker Carlson also launched a new show on Twitter called Tucker on Twitter. The iconic Balti restaurants run by the South Asian immigrant community in the UK find themselves fighting for survival. Only a handful of these restaurants remain today in their namesake area. The restaurants, most of them located in Birmingham's famous Balti Triangle, keep calm and carry on as competition from fast food joints rises. Replaced by burger places and dessert parlors, Balti joints are under threat of disappearing if unable to sustain. The restaurants go back to the mid-1970s when Pakistani migrants created a dish called Balti or bucket to feed hungry customers from nearby pubs. Residents in Taiwan crowd sticky rice dumpling shops to make the traditional dish zongzi to mark the Dragon Boat Festival. Zongzi, made of glutinous rice and various fillings wrapped in bamboo leaves, which is a traditional Chinese rice dish that goes back centuries. Known as the Duan Wu Festival among the Chinese-speaking community, the Dragon Boat Festival falls on the 5th day of the 5th month of the lunar calendar. The day is marked in remembrance of Gu Yuan, an exiled patriotic minister and poet who committed suicide by throwing himself into a river when his beloved homeland fell into invading forces in 278 BC.